Welcome to the Planning Committee. I'm sure you've all heard it before, those of you who've been along, but a few bits of housekeeping. First of all, if the alarm rings, it's not a test, it's a genuine concern, so please go out the way you come in. Switch your mobile devices to silent, because we have this thing that if it rings, you pay £5 to chairman charity, or we frown at it. The proceedings are being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes, after which you'll hear a tone and be asked to wind up. If you don't wind up, we will politely tell you to wind up. It's the only opportunity you have to speak, so please do not interrupt during the rest of the debate. I'm sure you won't clap, kiss, boo and cheer, but please don't. You'll see officers talking during the evening while you're talking, or while other people are talking, which looks bad manners. It isn't. Trying to get an answer for when you finish speaking, so that we don't have to stop to get the answer. First of all, an update on the performance. It's pretty similar to last time, members. It's 84% dealt with on time, which is pretty good, and 6% majors appeals overturned. So exactly the same as last time. Right. First of all, to sign the minutes. Is it your wish I sign them as a true and correct record? Agreed? Thank you. Obvious for absence.
Councillor David Smith and Councillor Deanna Edwards.
Are there any more? No, I'm sure there is one missing I can see, so I'm sure that'll turn up. Members' interests. Disposable interest. Councillor Franksman.
Thank you, Chair. 0452 Boughton, I have visited the site at the request of the Parish Council and the opposition to the applicant, and went on a site visit.
Thank you. Any others?
I've actually visited Walker-Mantel's farm. Do I need to declare that?
Did you do it in the time that the application was in?
No.
It was at another time.
It was.
I'm sure you don't know. Any other disposable interest?
Chairman, I visited the house at Western Capes during the time the application has been live.
Okay, thank you. Party whipping arrangements.
No.
The members of the public, we don't get together before on political lines to decide how we're going to vote. The decision is made after hearing all representations. There are no applications withdrawn and nothing under delegated powers. So we go straight to the first application, which my tag has fallen out, but it is Crick, and the number is 0207. Over to you, Amy.
Thanks, Chairman. The slides before members shows the site of this farm. It sits in the confines, the limits of the Crick. It is a listed building, and the buildings that are specifically listed are shaded red on that particular slide. There's two other buildings to the rear of the site which are not listed, although within the current list of the listed building. The application before members is an application to remove one of those buildings. Just go to the to remove a building that currently sits in this location and to replace it with a new lambing shed stroke garage in this location. So I don't intend to go through the report in detail, but you'll see from the report that the Conservation Officer provides the Council with advice on heritage matters, welcomes the removal of the existing building, but still has concerns about the construction of the new building on the grounds that it will still have an adverse impact on the setting and character of the listed buildings, particularly when viewed from the public footpath that lies to the northeast of the site. Given that harm, the Conservation Officer identifies that as less than substantial, there is a requirement to weigh that in the balance with the public benefits of the proposal. In our view, the public benefits to be accrued from demolishing the building, whilst welcome, do not outweigh the harm created by the new development, which intrudes further into the green field behind the listed complex, and still detracts from its setting. And accordingly, we're recommending the application be refused, Chairman. At this point, I would advise members of the late representations. The applicant can't be here this evening, but is forwarded on the first and second page of the late representations detailed comments. Those representations refer to a series of photographs which are now displayed for members. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Local member on the committee, Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've visited Walkermountain Farms in the past, not on this matter, and as you can see from the photographs, it's a bit of a mess, really. The whole place is a bit of a mess. Admittedly, some of the buildings are agricultural, and some are listed, not all of them. And this particular building isn't listed, as far as I'm aware. That's been explained within the curtain of the listed building, so therefore this consent is probably required, etc., etc. Now, I'm having difficulty seeing the harm that this application would do. The officers have already stated that they would like to see the removal of the building that's going to be removed, that is proposed to be removed. But the objective on it's going to be put up. Now, surely we can take care of that issue with conditions. I honestly don't know what it says in the report, that officers have had extensive discussions with the applicant as to the style of building, and I don't know really how far we can control that, but it strikes me that we can control it pretty much. So surely we ought to allow this application. Now, if we go around this footpath that we're talking about, it's a very little used footpath, quite frankly, not by me anyway. I didn't even know the footpath existed. But the road is a mess, and the road is a mess around there because of Walkermountain's farm. This applicant needs our help to sort this lot out, and I do believe that this is going some way towards sorting it out.
Thank you. Councillor Max.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Committee. Yes, I agree with Councillor Robertson on the question of it's a mess and it needs to be sorted out. And what I would like to see happen is some sort of master plan. We've had a number of applications, you'll see from your papers, over the last 2 or 3 years, and they keep coming. And rather than having these in bits and pieces, it would be good to see some sort of overall plan for what is happening. Councillor Robertson is absolutely right. It's a mess. It's really very unpleasant. Those buildings are way past their sell-by date, if they ever had one in the first place. What we are supposed to do, the NPPF guidelines say that we have to do what we can when heritage assets are involved to preserve and enhance them. What's there at the moment is doing nothing for them. With moving them to a different location, they actually will be better seen. The barns and the farmhouse will be much better seen, and I ask you to approve this application.
Thank you. I think, to be fair, nobody's got a problem with the actual building being removed. It's where the new building wants to go that is the problem that the conservation officer has. If the new building would go somewhere else, well then it would satisfy the conservation officer that it doesn't, in fact, interfere with the listed building. Would you like to make any more comments on that, sir?
Other than to say that the new building will further intrude into the green field that you see. There's no dispute about the existing building and its loss would improve the appearance from that particular point, but it's being replaced by another building that further intrudes beyond the complex, and as such, when viewed from the public footpath, does detract from the setting of the complex. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. And we're looking at the tin building, aren't we?
Correct.
The one on the left. Well, on my left. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a problem in removing a tin shed, tin building. I welcome the thoughts of the local member, Councillor Lomax, with regard to it's a mess. Well, it's a mess is not a planning consideration. With a heritage site, there is either public benefit or private benefit. I don't believe my colleague sitting behind me will, the heritage champion, will probably concur that there is little to no public benefit. The application actually says replacement and relocation of garage and naming shed. However, I look at that picture there, Chairman, and there is no evidence of a driveway into a proposed lambing shed and inverted commas garage. So I don't have a problem, Chairman. I recommend that we go with officer advice.
It's a proposal, is it? Councillor Paul?
Sorry?
That's a proposal, is it?
It is a proposal,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Do you have a second? Thank you. There's several hands. Whichever. Whatever. Councillor Frenchman next.
Yes, well, I was actually going to say much the same as Councillor Paul. It does say in the report, or seems to say in the report, that the need for a lambing shed is seasonal and irregular, and the buildings that they have would suit the purpose for that. I think if we could send a message to the applicant that, as previous councillors said, we're not again a development here, but we're against this particular one, that he perhaps needs to give some more thought to how it impacts on the heritage asset. I think that would be useful if we're allowed to do that, but I'm happy to follow officer's advice.
Thank you. First of all, Councillor Charlton, come back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I agree with that, which is why I was prepared to second it. We always have debate about listed structures, particularly development within the curtilage of listed structures. People will argue that no one can see this because it's round the back. That's not relevant, as we know. This can be seen, of course, from a public footpath. Whether or not particular members of this committee use that footpath very often or at all is irrelevant. It is a public right of way, and removing the existing building will improve the view of the heritage site. Putting up another building nearer to the footpath and intruding into that field area will detract from the view to the heritage site and therefore represents harm. And I agree with the officer's advice, particularly with the view of the conservation officer. The harm is not outweighed by any public benefit, because the only public benefit would be the removal of one shed, but then putting another one in place sort of reduces that benefit considerably.
Thank you, Councillor Charlton. Councillor Robertson, I'll second on that too.
Well, thanks, Chairman. Basically, we're back to this issue of less than substantial harm, which means any harm, and no harm really. And my view here is that it actually creates no harm at all. Therefore, there is no harm. We've made up harm here. It doesn't. There is no harm. The footpath, of course, it is relevant how many people look at it. If it isn't a very well used footpath, then it's not a very well used footpath, whether it be a public right of way or not.
Thank you. Right, now as we have come to the vote, Councillor Paul, unless you've got something.
Yeah, just one last brief comment from page 19, the bottom sentence, Chairman. Overall, it's considered that the proposal has very limited benefits, and those benefits are outweighed by the harm caused to the setting and appearance of the listed building, which in actual fact agrees with my colleague behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. If it's a one sentence one, yes.
The one sentence is, there is no harm.
Thank you. Right, we've got a proposal, the application be refused, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Right, those against? 7-4. The application is refused. Next application is in Pittsford, and remind you that we went there as a site visit, or certain members of the committee did. And the application number is 0268. Over to you, Alan.
Thanks, Chairman. As I say, this report was considered by the last committee when the application was prepared for site visit, so I don't propose to go into the report in a great detail, other than to say that members have now been to the site and will have seen, for those members who attend, have seen the relationship to the adjoining properties. Our view is that having received the amendments, the proposal is a satisfactory form of development in terms of its impact on conservation area and the immunity of neighbouring properties, and accordingly we're recommending the application be approved, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Local member, Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say thanks to all the members who took the time out last week to visit site. I think they will think it's very worthwhile. The more I think about this, the more I would like to propose that we refuse this application. I believe, being in a conservation area, it's contrary to quite a number of those sorts of policies, BN5. It's also massing and density and overbearing nature, and also the loss of amenity of the neighbours. Those who were there will bear witness to how high this is going to be in relation both to the existing building and in relation to buildings around it, and how close to the borders of some of them it will actually come. And bearing in mind it will affect quite a few of the neighbours, I feel that it would only be proper as the local member as well to propose refusal of this application.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Swift. You wish to speak now?
Yes, on the site visit, having looked at it, and from one side you just think, well, it's a bit big, but it's all right. Is when you have a site from the conservation, because it's in a conservation area, and the density of the building will have an impact. When you go on the lane, you have a mountain road and a little lane, and that will be quite an imposing new building. You will see it. And I think that will have an impact on the conservation area as a whole. And the height of the building, I do think, will be quite oppressive from the neighbours on both sides. And for those reasons, I will agree with Councillor Frenchman. Thank you.
Councillor Paul?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I too was on the site visit, and like Councillor Frenchman, I would like to thank all those that actually turned up. It's a serious matter going to a site visit, and no doubt we should call these at an earlier date, but however, I think the visit was worthwhile. A view that the buildings, the area have evolved over a period of time. All the buildings locally encroach upon each other. It's a small enclave of buildings. I feel that the extension, viewed from one of the windows of a neighbouring property, it doesn't have any significant detriment to the close proximity of buildings in that area, and I would like to go with officers' advice, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Oswald?
Thank you, Chairman. I actually agree with the local member, Councillor Frenchman. I found it quite, I think that it would be quite sort of like oppressive view there. It's quite where it's going to come out to, and then the chimney on top of that as well. I know I wouldn't want it there if I lived there. I mean, I know all the houses and they're all different heights and all different mismatches in like heights and everything around there. Beautiful houses, but I just do think this is this is too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michael.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I also agree with the local member, and I do feel, I appreciate that we did go on a site visit because actually it had to be there to see the impact that this would make. When you look from the front, actually, you sort of almost felt, it won't be so bad. And actually, when you looked around, it would have a real overbearingness on the surrounding properties. And also, we went when the sun was shining, and you could already see where the shadowing of the existing house was. So to move that over, it would definitely mean loss of life in the house to the left. That's what Chairman, thank you.
We've heard several of the members that went on the site visit. I was the other one, besides the ones that were spoken. I think it's a difficult one, and like Councillor Paul, I'd probably just come down on the officer's side, but you could very easily come down on the other side. It's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. But anyway, any more comments? If not, we have a proposal that the application be refused. And I need reasons as well.
I thought I gave them earlier.
You did give them. You've got them. Right. Okay. So no other comments?
Just through you, Chairman, clearly you referred to just the one policy, BN5, but I might suggest GN2.
That's the massing and density.
BN5 is the joint force strategy. Heritage asset. GN2 is sort of general immunity.
That's it, yeah.
And I think there's another policy in the SAVE policy EN2, which relates to conservation.
Okay. You happy with those?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a proposal then to refuse the application, which has been seconded. All those that support that proposal, please show. Those against? The application is refused. The next application is in Killsbury 0282.
Next, Chair, I'll draw members' attentions to the late representations on second and third page of the late reps. Dropping into the fourth page as well. Further letters from local residents objecting to the application. The Killsbury Action Group who set out their objections. What's on the late representations is a summary and conclusions that were contained in their representations. And further submissions from the applicant's agents in respect of the report. Those members who were around in February through the cycle.
Yeah, excuse us. If you'd like to sit down, we normally have a bit of a rule. We don't allow people to stand up. If you wouldn't mind. Okay? Take any seats you want, as long as they're this side. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Anne.
Okay, for those members who were here in February, there was an earlier application. I should also point out, on the summary, I have referred incorrectly to the previous application as DA 2015-0528. It should actually be 2014-0935, which is the application refused by the Council in February, which is now the subject of a public inquiry in November. The illustrative master plan that was submitted with that application is on the screen before you. And although the application was recommended for approval by officers, the Council resolved to refuse the application on the grounds of heritage impact on the Hollies, which is a Grade 2 listed building to the east of the site. The loss of undesignated bridge and furrow, which is contained in both the northern and southern parcel, and the impact on the performing character of the village as a result of developing this greenfield site. on the edge of the village. The applicants have responded to that in the current application in terms of seeking to address at least part of the reasons for refusal by reducing the amount of development in the northern part of the site in order to address the concerns of the Conservation Officer on the impact of the heritage asset. And you'll see from the report the Conservation Officer welcomes this approach and actually is satisfied that it reduces the impact on that particular heritage asset to one of a minor nature. Nevertheless, it's still harm, although it's much more reduced than on the previous scheme. There are other concerns that have been raised in respect to the proposal, namely still results in the loss of bridge and furrow and still results in the development of greenfield site on the edge of the village. Since the previous application was approved, was refused, there has been a change in circumstances in that the council now has a 5-year land supply and all relevant housing policies that relate to the supply of housing are now deemed to be up to date. In addition to that, the rural housing figure quoted in the Joint Core Strategy, although it's not a ceiling, has been exceeded. And as a result, that pulls into play the latter half of the Joint Core Strategy policy R1, which sets out a number of criteria that have to be satisfied in order to make development acceptable. In our view, in regard to those policies and to the National Planning Framework, which is a significant material consideration, the balance is tipped against the proposal in this particular circumstances, and accordingly we are recommending the application be refused, Chairman. I should also point out the applicants have raised concerns about the landscape officer's advice, and it is fair to say the landscape officer does not object to this application in terms of the impact on the wider landscape. That said, the council's reasons for refusal are still maintained, and evidence will be produced at the inquiry as to why the council, rather than the landscape officer, considers the proposal does have an adverse impact in terms of the loss of open land and some significance to the form and character of the village, Chairman. One further update in respect to the report is the status of the neighbourhood plan. You'll see in the report that reference is made to that it has no weight. There has been a change in circumstances in that the plan has now been submitted to the council for consultation, and that consultation is currently ongoing and will expire at the end of in September. The applicants have made representations on that. It simply means it's moved further along the process, but it hasn't yet been the subject of an examination, which is yet to be heard. Our view that it is still of limited weight. That said, come the time of the inquiry, it may well be that the council will have to take a revised view of the status of the neighbourhood plan in order to keep the inspector informed of its progress. But it isn't a reason for refusing the application, but it is a consideration. The weight to attach to it, which may change in due course. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Raymond. We have 3 speakers. Mr. Chamberlain, who's against the application.
Mrs. Chamberlain.
Sorry?
Mrs. Chamberlain. Thank you, Chairman. I represent Kilsby Action Group, who were formed to represent the residents of Kilsby and speak for large numbers of residents who've supported us in this campaign. Some 200 out of 500 and something houses supported us. We regard this application as the most cynical type of development management by the land broker. As the officer said, you refused an earlier application on the same site recently, and the reasons for refusal haven't substantially changed. The developer, when they address you, will tell you that they've listened to the concerns of the residents and come back with an amending proposal that benefits the village. They've removed 5 houses, but the site is the same physical size, and they have made some minor amendments that the officer has referred to. If you change your minds from the previous application and grant permission against the officer's recommendation, the developer will neither know or care, once the site is sold to the highest bidder, what happens at detailed planning permission. And certainly the eventual builder will seek to get the maximum number of units onto the site. There are two kinds of developers. I'm sure you've met both sorts. The first type kick you in the groin and rush to the High Court at the drop of a hat. The second type are really nice and friendly and smiling. Regrettably for Kilsby, the outcome is the same, whatever type of developer we get. It has to be said that these are nice, friendly people. I've been to several consultation meetings, and they gave the distinct impression that they were concerned about the village and the impact of the proposal. But my neighbours saw through them. One lady said to me afterwards, however you dress it up, it's only about the money. The cynicism that I mentioned earlier is contained in the fact, again referred to by the officer, they have a public inquiry day in November for the original proposal, which you rejected. And if you go along with this masquerade against the officer's recommendation, they'll drop the inquiry. There is no reason to accept this latest proposal. The process referred to by the officer is clear. Daventry has an adopted joint core strategy. The district has a robust land supply which has been tested twice recently, and following a very recent ruling was upgraded to 5.82 years. The district has exceeded its rural development target, and Kilsby's part in that is that 52 units against a housing stock of about 500 have already been approved. Most importantly, Kilsby's neighbourhood plan is in its final stages, and I accept the officer's professional opinion that it doesn't yet carry significant weight, but it nevertheless carries weight in planning decisions. And really importantly, the survey to produce the evidence base was completed by the most people in any exercise that anybody in the village can remember. Given the position that the DDC is in, the presumption of refusal for applications which seek to build outside of the confines must be upheld. And I want to just finish, and I hear the buzzer, by quoting the Communities Minister. We will not prevent developers from doing what they do if it's profitable for them. However, if there is an up-to-date local plan, and there is, and the developer, and there's a neighbourhood plan in place, which there very nearly is, if the developer wants to do something outside of those plans, unless it has the support and agreement of the community, which it doesn't, that should be the hardest thing they ever try to do. It should be pretty much impossible for them to achieve. I ask you to reject it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gowan, PC. Vice Council.
Unfortunately, Councillor Dunn isn't able to be here tonight. So
you're taking
you've got me
mine.
instead.
No problem.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman and councillors. Kilsby Parish Council strongly object to this application, and for the same reasons we have opposed the earlier attempt to develop this site. This revised application reduces the housing number from 70 to 65, but in all essential aspects remains unchanged. So do the reasons that this planning committee gave for refusing the first application. You've heard the planning officer speak about the wider planning context. The fact is that there is an adequate land supply overall, and in particular the housing supply in rural areas is already exceeded, and therefore further large-scale development of this nature is contrary to that policy. We clearly endorse this position. Apart from the lack of need for this development, from the point of view of the village community, our objection also rests on the impact of such a development taking place outside the confines of the village and indeed substantially detached from it. Those approaching the village along Barbie Road would be greeted by an urban view, not a village aspect. It would affect the valued green space around the village boundary, including the destruction of a section of ancient ridge and furrow field system, of which we are very proud, damaging the character and setting of the village, and in particular the setting of the Hollies, fine Grade 2 listed farmhouse. We also believe that a large-scale suburban-style development of this nature would not be sustainable in terms of the pressure it would put upon the limited infrastructure, principally the medical facilities, transport, education, power, sewage and water. Our own neighbourhood plan has completed all its community consultation and is now lodged with the District Council for final approval. and it expresses the views of the community very clearly. We welcome growth of the village through limited infill in a manner which can be sustainable accommodation, as Kilsby has been doing for generations. This proposal does not meet the needs and the wishes of Kilsby, and this is the view the Parish Council submitted in the letter of its objections.
Thank you. Mrs. Reeve, who's the agent.
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, good evening and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this evening. In February, your officer recommended approval for a similar but larger scheme, as we've heard. This application was refused, much to the disappointment of our client. Since that refusal, Richborough has worked to make changes to the scheme to reflect comments from both yourselves and as a result of further discussion with both the Parish Council and the Kilsby Action Group. The result of this consultation is that the application before you now has fewer houses and more open space. The conservation officer is of the view that any harm that might have been caused to the Hollies as a result of this development is now only minor in nature. She has no objection to the application. Furthermore, a new zebra crossing has been planned along with other highways improvements and crossing points. We've responded directly to the Parish Council's concerns here, and not everybody in the village is opposed to the development, including those overlooking the site. Within the past week, there has been a further important change to the context within which you are considering in this application. The Gladman appeal on Rugby Road in Kilsby has been withdrawn. In the context of the 5.2-year housing supply which the Council is advising it is able to demonstrate, this is important. The trajectory shows that the supply is due to fall below the 5-year figure within 1 year. This is not a comfortable position to be in and could leave the Council vulnerable to further appeal challenges. The application before you offers the opportunity to address these issues head-on. By granting planning permission for a scheme of 65 dwellings, you not only have a stronger basis upon which to resist future resubmissions from Gladman, but also the opportunity to strengthen your future supply against attack from developers elsewhere within the district. Inspectors at recent appeals, including that at Wheeling Beck, have ruled that although each council could identify a 5-year housing land supply, that did not mean that more housing should not be provided. The government has been clear that the focus should be on significantly boosting the supply of housing. As your officer points out in his report, this is a finely balanced decision, but he has concluded that the proposal before you represents sustainable development. The NPPF states that where development is considered to be sustainable, the default should be a presumption in favour. In granting planning permission, you would be allowing a site to come forward that will deliver affordable housing that is badly needed within your district and is currently not being delivered. Members will be aware that our client has submitted an appeal against the decision for the 70-unit scheme, but it is not their preference to plan by appeal. I can confirm that if planning permission is granted for the scheme before you, the appeal will be withdrawn. We did listen to what you had to say in February. We have reduced the impact on heritage assets. We are providing benefits. 40% affordable housing, new pavements, new road crossings and contributions to health and education. We are assisting with your duty to significantly boost housing on sustainable sites, and so it is with respect that I ask that you approve this application.
Thank you. Local members, Councillor Officer.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, I can't believe the number of communications I've had on this subject. If I hadn't turned my phone off for this meeting, I'd still be getting them now. It's perfectly clear that Barbie and Kilsby and the whole area are against this proposition. Now, I've had to look at this quite closely because a lot of the objections I've received have not been what one would term planning objections. They've been person objections, really. But there are quite a few that are, and we've already heard from officers for legal reasons that we should refuse this. Now, the area, as you know, borders Warwickshire. Quite a distance, in fact, a great distance. And just over that border, planning has already been granted for an enormous number of houses. Kilsby, Barbie, Crick feel themselves under huge pressure because of the bypasses that have been built around them and the infill sites that are becoming available. Now, I don't think the timing's right on this. It's my view. The timing is to get in quickly and get some development money off whoever in order that they can expand the village. There's no real need for it. I don't see a need here. So I would like to propose here and now that we support officers' advisory reviews.
Do you have a second? Thank you. I'll let the other local member speak first, and I'll come to you as the speaker. Councillor Over.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, there's not a great deal that I can add to what's already been said. However, I do think it's important that you bear in mind, first of all, that this development actually has been referred to by the developers as providing a new residential community. I thought we were about sustainable development, which was to do with the village that already existed, a new sustainable community. Moreover, it does phase away from the village. It represents a 10% increase alone on the houses which Kilsby have, and together with the housing development on the 361, A361, which you allowed last year, and the small development, infill development, which is going on at the moment, together those three developments represent 23% increase in housing stock in Kilsby. I don't think that represents a sustainable community. So I'd like you to bear that in mind. Also, the fact that we've now got the joint core strategy in place. It's outside the confines of the village. The neighbourhood plan is well on the way to, hopefully, being accepted. It's some way down, some way to go yet, but it will be, hopefully, accepted. And I do think that we have to bear in mind that 6 houses, okay, we've still got the Ridge and Furrow to think about, and there is still pressure on the village roads. Doesn't matter what happens at the access point, those houses are going to contribute to further disruption within the village, which already has had to have its own informal one-way system for the school, for instance, in order to make sure that traffic can actually make an attempt to flow. So I think you've all had Richmond's letter, or enough, too. The development isn't required for Kilsby's own needs. We may have needs in the district as a whole, but I'm not sure that this is the way to provide them. So I ask you to follow this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Right, next on the second, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second the proposal that we go with officers' advice and refuse this development. I'm very familiar with the history of this site and the development. I have attended a number of meetings of the local neighbourhood planning group in the early stages of their neighbourhood plan, and it was quite clear that the feeling that we've heard represented here this evening is against it. However, I see all of that as supplementary. To me, the clear point is that the adopted core strategy policy R1, which we know conforms with the NPPF because the inspector said so, it says once the housing requirement for the rural areas has been met through planning permissions or future allocations, further housing development will only be permitted where it can be demonstrated that either it would result in environmental improvements on a site, including, for example, the reuse of previously developed land and best practice in design, which clearly doesn't apply here, or it's required to support the retention of or improvement to essential local services that may be under threat, in particular local primary school, primary health service, and that doesn't apply either. And therefore, it's against policy. So I see no reason to go against officers' advice that we should refuse it for those reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the strategic planning portfolio holder has summed it up admirably. But we are talking about a limited infill village. to add to what my colleague has said, that development is planned for the urban conurbations in and around our district. It's very difficult as planning members. We have a difficult jobs. We are at times having differing opinions from our colleagues. Moreover, we're required to adhere to really the rules and regulations that my colleague has said. Therefore, unfortunately, I have no option to agree with the officers, Chairman.
Thank you. If there's no more comments, we have a proposal the application be refused, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. The application is refused. If anybody from Kilsby wants to go, we'll give you a few
But you can get one of those right through the
We move on to Brixworth 0373. Over to you, Aidan.
Thanks, Chairman. This is a full application for extensions to the dwelling and sort of fairly modern residential estate, as you see. Rear the dwelling faces north, neighbouring properties to the west and northeast and to the east. Proposed application involves extensions to the rear and an infill extension between the existing detached garage and the front of the main house. Just go to the drawings. So in terms of the rear of the property, there's a single-storey extension, a two-storey extension over, which will project only less than a metre, or around about a metre in the rear of the existing property. And to the front, effectively infilling the space between the existing garage, the new garage and study and porch with extensions over. In our view, the proposal relates well to the street scene, although there's an impact on the amenity of the property to the west. Our view is the proposal does not adversely impact on that amenity, sufficient to warrant refusing the application. Accordingly, recommend the application be approved, Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. We have speaker is the applicant, Mr. Godley.
I submitted some photos as well. Oh, thank you. Okay, hi, good evening. I'm the applicant, Steve Godley. I have lived and worked in Brixworth for the last 8 years. I live with my wife and 2 daughters and would like to build the proposed extension so that the house will satisfy our family needs for many years ahead. I would like to take this opportunity to offer counter-arguments to the submitted objections raised. My neighbours, Mr Cowart's first objection seems to be centred around my property becoming excessively large and looking out of place amongst the surrounding properties. This, I feel, is an untrue statement for the following reasons. Directly opposite my house, number 9, is a large 5-bedroom detached property occupying a larger footprint than my house. The house directly next to my house, number 12, is a large extended 4-bedroom property occupying a larger footprint than my house. Notably, my third boundary neighbour, number 10, was originally the same identical house to mine. However, it has benefited from a significant extension in recent years. As I am surrounded by houses larger than my house, I do not agree that my application will make my house look excessively large. Indeed, it will make it a comparable size to the houses which surround it. The parish council have objected to the proposed front extension on the grounds that it will change the street scene. I do not agree with this view on the basis that the area of land which will be used for the build can hardly be seen from the pavement. On screen should be 3 photos showing the 3 angles from which my property can be viewed. The land can only be viewed from one of the angles, and as stated by the planning officer, can only be glimpsed at as you walked by. The design of the garage is sympathetic to the street scene, as the roof line will be lower than the existing garage and is deliberately set back from the existing garage to further obscure it from view. Mr. Cowart decided that it will make them feel extremely enclosed. However, if you view the picture on screen now, then you can see that they are used to having the full width wall of my garage enclosing their driveway. I don't subscribe to the additional garage having any significant additional effect on their feeling of enclosure. Furthermore, Mr. Cowart makes an objection to the garage on the grounds of its use. Reading his objection, where he states I'm a motor engineer, gives the impression I will be bringing cars home to work on and creating lots of noise and smells as a direct result of this extra garage being built. This couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that I am not a motor engineer. I am a university-educated electronics engineer, gaining a master's degree from the University of Leeds. I work as an electronics engineer at Mercedes-AMG in Brixworth in an office and lab-based testing environment. I have never had a complaint regarding any noise or smells being created on the occasion I have worked on my cars. I have only ever worked on my own cars, with the exception of 2 occasions when Mr. and Mrs. Cowart have asked me to assist with the repair of their cars. This I have gladly done, but on their drive. Unlike many people, I use my existing garage for storing a car in. My other garage contains my trailer, which I use for taking items to the tip for recycling, numerous bikes, gardening equipment and tools. I would like the additional garage to store my wife's convertible car in, so as to protect its roof. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Right, local members, we have 2. Who wants to go first? That's everybody.
Well, I'll get the short straw.
Councillor Parker. Councillor Parker. You're on.
I actually don't support this because I think it does go against GN2A, where it is not the scale design and in keeping with the locality. That's also supported by the Brixworth Village Design Statement, which is BG19, where open plan frontages were part of the original architectural style. This should be continued. Is it important that plot partition and infill is not permitted to the detriment of the original overall style? And BG21, the scale of new buildings should respect that of neighbouring properties, the spaces between them, the street scene and vista. The third garage is built to adjoin the property next to the study. Therefore, the open space or gap, I should probably say, between houses on 14 and 16 will be infilled and therefore contrary to the Daventry sale policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm surprised there's any objection to this application, actually, Chairman. The objections do seem to revolve around 2 aspects, I think. One is the street scene, and one is the privacy of the neighbours and accompanying properties. Well, to set the scene, Daventry Way isn't a street of thatched cottages and Georgian terraces, where one change building could upset the whole of the vista. It's not that sort of building. It's a late 20th century estate, quite a pleasant estate, and there's a variety of house designs, as the applicant has already said. Some have been considerably altered. The house itself is partly hidden behind the garage block already. So it's set about 10 metres or more back from the road, So I can't see any detriment at all to the street scene. You can hardly see the extension when it's going to be built. The link can be glanced. You can glance and see it from the road as you pass, we're told by the planning officers. Now, the village design statement of Brixworth Parish Council, it's secondary planning legislation, as we know, and BG21 that's been mentioned does mention the scale of building should be in keeping with the surrounding houses and so on. But let's read a bit further into the parish VDS, the village design statement, and look at paragraph 5.1. Paragraph 5.1 specifically mentions Tantry Way. And the concerns are spelt out there in more detail. And the concerns of the parish council when they wrote this approved policy document was in height. They were concerned about how it could be overbearing to surrounding policies. Now, there's no application here to add a third storey that I can see. There is some sideways expansion, true, but it's not going to be exceeding the present 2 storeys. So I don't see the relevance of that particular BG21. The other one they've mentioned, BG19, concerns the open plan of the development and the possible development. Well, it isn't open plan at the moment, hardly. The garage takes up almost a quarter to a third of the vista. Well, I can't see very much. The front of the garden isn't going to be stopped from being open plan. It's going to remain open plan. So I can't understand an objection from that point of view. So we're left with the proximity of neighbours that we must be concerned and address ourselves with. And I think the applicants have amended their plans in recognising that the original plans perhaps were slightly intrusive. There may be effort to address those concerns. I know the officers saying that the 60-degree splay of visibility for the ground floor will not be intruded upon by this development, nor will the 45-degree splay from the bedroom windows of the adjoining property. So whilst they may feel that they have a house next to them, in planning terms, the officers are telling us that that is not an unreasonable closeness, or their privacy won't be invaded to an unreasonable extent. Now, if the garage is to be used for repairs, that is purely speculative at this stage. I would say it doesn't concern this committee this evening, colleagues, with respect, and if it is going to be a change of use, that will be the subject of a separate planning policy, or application, should I say. I can find no planning reason to refuse the extension of this family home, and I would propose, certainly I would want to approve this in line with what the officers have recommended. Thank you, Chairman. I will make a formal proposal for the reasons they state in their report.
Okay. Do we have a second? I saw your hand first, Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, can I speak now?
You can, as you're a seconder, yes, you can speak before the list of speakers.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything Councillor Barrett has said, as his 2 local members. I don't see it's going to change it at all. I would have thought that the garage would be better because it's being brought down. The roof line's being brought down, so surely that won't be. To my mind, that would be the bit that I would be concerned about, but that's coming down anyway. And I wouldn't have thought to that neighbour there would be any impact or detriment to it at all. So yeah, I'm happy to second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. In the corner of one of these plans, there was a block plan showing the extension. Do you find that, do you think? I think it's the bottom of that one, isn't it? Yeah.
This one here, I'm zooming.
That little one at the bottom, yeah. There we go. I generally agree with what's been said and would support this, but I do have a question for the officers, which is, you talk about it, that's a glass conservatory on the back of the neighbours. Isn't the light blocked from that by the extension, and doesn't that contravene the 60-degree sight line?
Again, through you, Chairman, the light is such. This is the 2-storey element. So yes, there is a very limited impact, but not sufficient to warrant refusal. This is north-facing, so this is to the west. So there's an element to say that there's already an impact from the existing house, and it won't be significantly worse as a result of that small two-storey projection there, and certainly isn't any effect from the west in terms of the conservatory getting a reasonable level of light throughout the day.
Yep. Thank you. So
there's an impact, but not significant.
Okay, and mostly because the sun comes up the west side, it will be minimised to the
It'll
morning.
rise in the east, so it'll be quite low in the sky.
Yeah.
But by the time it gets right there.
Thank you, that's fine. Thank you.
There's no more hands up, so I don't think there is. We have a proposal that the application be be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Okay, those against? Thank you. 11-1, the application is approved. We move on to Preston Capes, which is 0420. Over to you, Aaron.
This is fairly large detached dwelling sitting essentially within a large plot that sits to the east of the village. The area shaded yellow is the conservation area. Simply refer to that because the Parish Council have raised some concerns about the impact of this development on the conservation area, quoting it as being adjacent. The proposal that's before members is really an application for the remodelling of an existing house. And it involves quite extensive alterations, but it really results in not a significant increase in the floor area of the existing building. Primarily, it involves the demolition of the existing single-storey elements, the remodelling of the two-storey with further extensions. So that single-storey extension will be replaced by a two-storey extension with garage underneath and an ancillary self-contained flat above. The main two-storey block would be remodelled with the existing porch that you can see there on the left-hand side being extended upwards to effectively create a stairwell feature at the front of the property. The new entrance being moved to the right-hand side of that. As I said, the plot itself is away from any other residential properties, so the impact on the residential amenity is non-existent. It is in the open countryside, but it is an existing dwelling. And I argue the alterations and extensions are acceptable, will not have an impact on the conservation area, and will not impact adversely on the surrounding area, and accordingly recommending the application be approved. I would at this point also refer to the Parish Council comments in respect of if members are minded to approve the application about some form of requirement of the construction vehicles using the road and repairing the road. There are tests to be applied when applying conditions to planning applications. Bearing in mind this is an application for an extension to a residential property, we don't consider that it's reasonable or necessary to impose such a condition. And that's it, Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. And we'll speak to the agent, Mr. Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for allowing us to address you this evening. You'll probably be pleased to know there isn't a great deal more that I can add to the officer's report, and we're pleased to see that he's recommending approval. The application before you tonight is the result of a design review carried out with your officers, whose advice was wholeheartedly accepted by the applicants when discussing matters such as scale, design, appearance and massing, along with additional comments relating to the more detailed elements of the scheme. It was also noted during discussions that the principle of the proposals was not at issue. Following the review, amendments were then made to the scheme used as a basis for discussion with officers. An application was prepared and submitted with full details, supporting statements and photographs as agreed. The property will benefit considerably from the proposals before you tonight. The upgrades to the fabric of the building will significantly improve its energy efficiency and sustainability. There are also a number of structural defects which cannot be easily addressed individually but collectively tackled through the course of the works, will also significantly improve the structural integrity and well-being of the property for the future. During discussions, it was agreed that the present house is poorly configured and has dated fenestration often representative of the 1970s, and in itself had very little architectural merit or value to its location or setting. And although located in the open countryside, due to the local rolling topography, the house is not easily seen from many of the surrounding viewpoints, as noted in the officer's report. We've also noted the Parish Council's comments, but accept the officer's judgment with regard to his overall assessment of the application. However, we acknowledge their concerns relating to construction traffic and will ensure that it is accessed along the Charwelton to Maidford Road as they request, should you be minded to approve the application. We are also content with the conditions proposed by your officers, in particular the use of the annex, where it is anticipated by the applicants that there will be a need for accommodating elderly parents in the near future, and will be maintained ancillary to the residential occupation of Nether Preston. In summary, Mr. Chairman, there's very little more that we can say, and we trust that you and your committee will follow the officer's advice and approve this householder application before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooey.
Thank you.
Councillor Patchett, local member.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just for members' information, really, this particular building isn't listed and it hasn't been built all that many years. But one of the benefits of current planning and indeed building regulations of recent years ensures that buildings are built correctly, and the problem with this building is that if the work isn't done properly now, it will eventually fall down, and there is evidence of walls moving and all sorts of stuff because it just wasn't built correctly inside. Everything else has been covered really by the officers and by Mr. Coy, so I would think that the only thing for me to do now is to recommend that we members approve this application.
Thank you. That's a proposal.
That's a proposal, Chairman.
You're seconding, Councillor Frenchman. Thank you. I must make a comment that we're going to have an annual tour of look at planning things. I'd like to see that when it's finished because I think it looks quite an impressive house, and I compliment the person that drew that.
It has views to die for, Chairman.
Sorry?
It has views to die for, isn't it? Right at the back.
It's very nice, anyway. Right, if there's no more speakers, if you would propose that the application be approved, which has been seconded, all those in agreement please show. Unanimous. Okay, the application is approved. The next application is 0452 in Daventry.
Thanks, Chairman. The application involves a property that lies within the building has been converted to various residential units. As a result, you've got properties cheek by jowl in the building itself. As you'll see from the report, this is the issues that have been given rise to as a result of the development. The application before members stressed it's an application upon which you should judge on its planning merits. Is an application for the installation of 2 roof lights, and it is a retrospective application. But as members well know, such retrospective applications must be approached as if they were planning applications and treated on their planning merits, without regard to the fact that the development has already been carried out. As I said, the application is an application for 2 roof lights. One which is at the side of the building. Which is on the side of the building, and it is readily visible from outside of the site. Serves an existing living room, which is the Balthy flat, and in our view, it does not impact adversely on the appearance of the building, nor does it impact adversely on the amenities of adjoining neighbouring properties, and accordingly we're satisfied with that. The second roof light. It serves an existing bathroom. This is an internal photograph taken by the enforcement officers when they investigated it. You'll see that it is quite high level and doesn't afford looking out onto it. See what the objectives. although we do accept that as a result of the introduction of this, there obviously has been brought to light the existence of two other roof lights in what is a very tightly contained roof valley. So the subject roof light is the one on the right hand side. The roof light opposite it is one of the neighbouring properties. And the third roof light belongs to yet another neighbouring property, all within the same building. In our view, the proposal does not result in any direct overlooking of adjoining properties, although we accept there may well be a perceived overlooking. The fact that the windows are capable of opening in very close proximity does give rise to concerns about amenity and general noise. We consider that could be mitigated by making the glazing both obscure glazed but also fixed, so as to render any impact on those existing neighbouring properties acceptable. And on that basis, Chairman, we are recommending the application be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Eamon. We have two speakers. Mr. Tyrrell, who's against the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, my name is Dennis Tyrrell. I'm the owner of Stable Cottage. Could you just leave the photograph up of the roof plan, please? That's the window in the bottom left-hand corner. I've lived here for 28 years. I'm representing the views of myself and my wife and our immediate neighbour, who is the roof light in the far left-hand corner. The purpose of speaking to this committee today is obviously to convince you that this application and the recommendation put forward in the report should be refused. The basis for this is that the recommended solution in that report does not resolve the noise, visual and privacy issues. Just reducing, minimising, which are the words used in the report, visual and noise issues is not acceptable. Any solution needs to eradicate completely our problems, otherwise it will remain a gross invasion of our right to a private life. The bothy window is literally in our faces. I look at that window daily. It is there every time I use my toilet. It's an arm's length away. As you can see, that is just over 1 metre between our window on the left and the window on the right. We could pass a towel between the two windows. Everyone that uses our shower room, not just us, is shocked by what they see and how close it is. Even the council officers that have visited this site have had the same shocked reaction as to how close it is. We are in constant fear of being seen and heard, and are being intimidated when using our bathrooms. Our private facilities have now been turned into nothing better than public toilets. It's changed our behaviour in our own homes. We have to whisper upstairs now to avoid being heard. Our neighbours will not use their bathroom now with the light on anymore. Nothing in this report before you, committee, or anything else you may have read will convey the true reality of the situation here and the enormity of the impact it's having on our lives. Our neighbours can hear toilet noises 23 feet away in their bedroom with doors and windows closed, including this bothy window, the window in question. We are only 1 metre away, so what intimate goings-on do you think we can hear on a daily basis? We have submitted video and audio evidence that illustrates the level of intrusion. We simply cannot live with this situation. The window is indecently close. It has ruined our homes. The justification for refusal. The committee report states there is insufficient justification. Yet the parish council and the freeholder of this property, which is a leasehold, both provide ample grounds to refuse, as I'm sure you've seen in the papers. Neither party would have approved the application at the outset. The bothy flat, as I said, is a leasehold. Just because the window's there, you shouldn't be finding a solution for keeping it. Would any of you want to live with this situation? We do not want to hear people having sex or having people straining on the toilet, and we don't want to have our intimate behaviour overheard by others. What we do in our own homes is private and for our knowledge only. In summary, our immediate neighbours, the parish council, the bothy freeholders, all state the same material planning reason objections, that the planning approval would not have been given at the outset. The logical and ethical outcome of this meeting must be to refuse the application and the recommendations within the report. Finally, this is all the result of a serious error by the council. I just want 2 points to make. This is the result of a serious error by the council. Had they done their public duty on the day of installation of this window, it would not have been put in. We will now be expected, if you approve this application, to pay the price for that error. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Mr. Sargent, I think that's how you pronounce it.
It is, yeah. I'm going to say it if I make my eyesight and my scribbles, but
you don't have to stand.
You'll be able to hear me. Good evening. My name's Alex Sargent. I'm the current owner of the property. Although I live in Bowden Village, have done for about 18 years. I don't live at this property. It's inhabited by my daughter and her partner and their baby child. In my view, the planners have done their job in approving in their report the proposal for the window to stay. Thanks for putting that one up. That's a very, I understand that gentleman is a fairly tall individual, and how some of the suggestions that you've already heard could apply to that particular example is quite beyond me, but I'll come into more detail in a second. Planners have done their job. There are two issues that we have. One relates to the frosting of the glass, which actually was a proposal that was put forward by the owner at the time of the installation and was met with a volley of verbal abuse from Mr. Tyrrell's family, from a member of Mr. Tyrrell's family. The other issue relates to the opening, and we would like you tonight to reconsider that as part of the report and the approval. Now, this process of this planning process and the objections has, and the Dirty Tricks campaign led by Mr. Tyrrell has been going on for 10 weeks now. And just to give you a flavour, you've heard some tonight, and I've never heard such a pile of lies in all my life. But to add to that, we've had hysteria, we've had threats, we've had abusive behaviour, we've had allegations of voyeurism, believe it or not. We've had, as confirmed tonight, we've had recordings of my grandson in the bath, which I now hear has been confirmed is also video evidence. And this is a matter for the police. It's been reported to the police. There's a police investigation into the recording, which I thought up until tonight was only an audio video, but I now hear is that it's also a video, and maybe for all I know, somewhere out there on the internet. I go on. There's been a nuisance claim made by the DDC, by them to the DDC, which none of this evidence has come forth, but it's part of this continual Dirty Tricks campaign, which I think is quite appalling. You should be ashamed of yourself. It's disgusting. The parish council have been abused in that the meeting process, much like tonight, rather than getting 3 minutes, Mr. Tyrrell took 15 minutes of boring the parish council with the same rubbish that you've heard tonight, and that process is being taken up with the parish council with a full complaints process in place to address why that was allowed to happen and why a recording of my grandson was listened to in public by members of the parish council and the parishioners in general. Just to move on to the planning matter itself, I believe that this process has been a bit too much for the planners, if I'm quite honest. They're sick to death with it, with the words that I got. And in doing so, I believe that's influenced them to some kind of compromise with regard to the closing of the window. So our proposal is that you address that particular matter and allow the window to be an opening window, albeit we're happy to change the glass to frosted and put a restrictor on it so that the window can only be partially open for the benefit of natural ventilation. Why should one party have the benefit and another not? I'd ask you to consider that, please. With regard to the other matters I mentioned, yes, I can. I'd ask you, thank the planners for their hard work in having to deal with this appalling behaviour from Mr. Tyrrell and others. and I just ask you to consider the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eamon would like to come back on some of the comments. Eamon?
Only in respect to the reference to leasehold and some form of covenant that applies to the building. I mean, that is entirely outside the planning process, and it can be invoked under civil legislation. Certainly, I can think of one example where the council granted permission, but development did not go ahead because of a covenant having been invoked. So that's entirely a matter for to pursue it outside of the planning regime. Members must restrict themselves to the planning merits of the application. As I said, there's one window which clearly there isn't an issue with, but we can't issue a split decision. This is the window that is the cause for concern. You can see from that photograph it is a high-level window, but we do acknowledge that as a result of this window and the very close proximity of other windows, that there is an amenity issue, and the recommendation is based on trying to mitigate that amenity issue by closing the window and cutting obscure glazing in to avoid any reflection rather than sort of direct overlooking, but also to mitigate any potential for general noise nuisance rather than it being statutory noise nuisance. That is the recommendation before committee. The applicants do have a right of appeal against those conditions if they feel it's necessary. That said, members, if you're minded to approve the application, I feel that an alternative can be looked at in terms of securing ventilation into it. The conditions could be amended to require an alternative ventilation scheme to avoid the windows having to be opened. Equally, if members feel that there's a need to refuse the application, you need to consider what is the actual harm. Bearing in mind that these are not habitable rooms. Although they're bathrooms, they are not, in planning terms, regarded as a habitable room where people will permanently stay in like a living room and be sort of looking at the windows all the time. They are sort of ancillary rooms within the property itself. We consider the recommendation strikes a reasonable compromise in mitigating the impact of the development. That's the recommendation for members tonight.
Thank you, Eamon. Local member, Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. Well, perhaps not thank you in this particular instance. It appears that there's quite a lot of friction between the applicant and the opposition in this particular matter, and quite a lot of what's been said by both parties do not appear to me to be material planning considerations, as I think the officers alluded to. As I said earlier, I've been to site, and I have to agree that when you first see it, it is, you go, wow, what's that about? And my immediate thoughts were to the conditions as proposed by officers, that it be obscured and that it be a non-opening window. What slightly swayed it for me was when I spoke to to some people who said that they could, even though the window was closed, they could still hear, I will use the euphemism, sounds of various activities being carried out in the bathrooms. And I understand what the officer's saying when he says that they are not, I've forgotten the phrase now, habitable rooms, but the fact of the matter is that you're generally using the bathrooms, which these two are at the same sort of times, obviously at bedtime. So it's not about whether they're habitable, it's about the embarrassment, if you want, the nuisance, the loss of amenity and privacy, which can be achieved not necessarily just by looking, but by hearing as well. And I think that, as I have, if you, as a slight aside, were to go to Japan, they have special toilets that make special noises to cover any embarrassing sounds that are made, because they are so reticent about public displays of yes, I'll leave it there for everyone's imagination. So I don't quite know where to go with this, but I would like to propose that we refuse this. And really it's down to, and I don't know what the exact wording is, but it's loss of amenity and privacy, which I think is not down to the visual nature of the problem, though it is intrusive by just being able to see it out the window, but by the audible nature of the activities that are carried out.
Okay. Do you have a second then? Are you seconding, Councillor Robinson?
No, I wanted to...
No, I've got you down to speak.
Yeah.
Do you have a second then? Not at this stage.
No, I'll second that.
You'll second it?
Yeah. Would you like me to speak now or to
well, anyone wants to come back, I'm not going to just start and speak. Okay.
I mean, I understand the concerns expressed by Councillor Frenchman, but ultimately you've got to test this on its planning merits. And again, the issues of the building itself is building has been converted into 3 residential units. So who's to say that these noises, activities, vibrations or whatever are already evident? I don't know how are these made worse by this one single window, and that is the issue. That said, it's acknowledged you've got a roof light. It's in very close proximity to another roof light and another roof light, which say are bathrooms. But the offending roof light, shall we say, is at a high level, as the photograph indicates. So what you're talking about is almost a very general community issue, which in our view can be mitigated by way of the conditions that we're proposing. That said, you as members are entitled to come to an alternative view, and you're entitled to come to a decision to refuse the application, but you will then need to produce the evidence as to what it is about that particular window and the nature of activities that causes the immunity problem, when it all relates to a building that's used by 3 residential properties, doing whatever people do in the residential properties.
Can I come back just slightly, if you don't mind?
Okay.
What I can't get my mind around is that we're talking about mitigating the problem. But if they'd applied for planning permission as should have happened in the first place, we wouldn't have probably accepted it. So there wouldn't be a problem to mitigate.
With respect to, Chairman, the officers have assessed the application. Because it's there, you can consider the visual impact, etc. We've assessed that there isn't physical overlooking.
I've already said that isn't the problem, particularly.
No, I understand, but that's the issue that you have as members. If you're minded to refuse the application, it is articulating exactly what it is about this particular roof light that is causing sufficient concerns. Bearing in mind, it's all related to a building that is in 3 separate residential uses. All the activities, noises, and etc. that ongoing. What is it about this particular roof light that causes that problem? Indeed, when the 2 other properties also have similar roof lights.
I'm assuming it's the removal of the roof has removed the audible insulation that was previously in place.
Again, through you, Chairman, it's one single section of the roof. Is all the noise coming out through that? I don't.
That's the apparent case.
Anyway,
sorry.
Okay, Councillor Robertson, you seconded the proposal.
Indeed, Mr. Chairman, I have feelings about this because if it had gone through the proper procedure and the planning application had been made for it, and I assume a planning application would have had to have been made for it, then I certainly wouldn't want it in close proximity to my own property. And there are other technical solutions to this, which I'm sure officers may well have suggested had they been given the opportunity to do so. I'm thinking light tubes, etc., etc. There are a number of ways that you don't have to overlook other people's property, or even be in close proximity to other people's property to furnish the required light and ventilation that a bathroom / shower room requires. Now that's where I'm coming from here. I think that we wouldn't have granted that or it wouldn't even come before us if it had got through the proper procedure. A different solution would take place.
I must say, before you say the word proper procedure, it's not improper to have a retrospective planning application.
I accept that.
That's perfectly okay.
Yeah. In that case, I believe that if this had come before us, we would not have accepted and we would have refused it on the basis of, what's the wording?
Chairman, with respect, that is irrelevant. What is before you is the application. You must judge it. Again, you're entitled to take the view that the installation of that window detracts from the amenities of the adjoining residential properties. Perfectly entitled to that. The applicant has a right to appeal. Until such time as that appeal is heard, the window will remain in place because the council will not be in a position to enforce it. And indeed, even if the council took the decision to enforce it, the applicant has a right of appeal. So it doesn't solve the situation immediately because the planning system affords applicants the right to challenge a council's decision. In our view, the recommendation before me tonight seeks to strike conditions that mitigate its impact. And that's why officers have come to that recommendation. As I say, you're perfectly entitled to come to a view refusing the application. But to be clear, it will not solve the problem overnight. There are rights of appeal, and they will continue. Evidence will have to be produced for and against the proposal, which will have to be heard by an inspector, etc., etc.
Thanks, Ryan. Just so that you know where you stand, you have put your hands up a long while. Councillor Irving Swift's next, followed by Councillor Poole, followed by Councillor Osborne. So we have the next three speakers. Right. Okay, I shall have those two now and call for Councillor Irving Swift to speak.
Yes, first it's quite an unpleasant situation for both neighbours to be like that. But we're just speaking about bathroom there, and I'm terribly sorry, but if what the officer proposed is quite I think will solve the problem, so the neighbours will not be overlooked, the window will not open anymore, and frankly, as Emily said, the noise, I cannot imagine that would be heard. It's not something that people, and looking at the bathroom, and as it's quite a small room, so you don't spend 2 hours every morning having a brush. So I think the solution is maybe not optimal if it would have been, but as it stands, we have a solution. I think the officer has to be congratulated. I cannot speak now. Should be congratulated for having done a job under the circumstances. So I think we have a solution, and it's okay with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Irving Swift summed it up very well. But I mean, if you look at the height of one bathroom and the height of another, I know my colleagues don't like any retrospective planning application. However, it is a planning application, and we judge each planning application on merit. The conditions on page 98 are a bit too 1 month to the date of their approval, etc., and it's there for everybody to read. I think is a workmanship word out. It's a solution to a problem. We are talking about double glazing. You know, we are talking about obscure glass, and I, like Councillor Irving Swift, congratulate the officers for coming to a resolution, provided we approve it, of a difficult situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Oswald.
I just want to make a point, please, Chairman, that Councillor Robertson said, and I just want to sort of put it right. He said about retrospective planning application, and he said if it had come to committee, we would have refused it. I'm afraid you can't actually say that because you have no idea how we would vote, and we have no idea how we vote until we come here and hear both sides and also what the officer says to us. So I'd just like to make that.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point.
Yeah, I'd just like to make that point.
And I'm sure he accepts that. But I gather what he means. Okay, Councillor Champion next.
Thank you, Chairman. One of my points has just been made. The second point was, I think I heard Councillor Paul say that it is double glazed. That was going to be a question of mine. Is it double glazed? Yeah, well, my own experience of double glazing is that it's very effective sound block. So if the window is closed and obscured, as the officers suggest, I see that is the right solution to this situation. It would, of course, it's not a planning matter, but somebody will need to be sure that there is adequate ventilation in that space, whether it's provided artificially or naturally. But it's not a planning matter.
Again, it's entirely within the member's remit to change the conditions such that in seeking the window to be closed, that a scheme for alternative means of ventilation is also submitted to the planning authority. That's something the applicants have raised concerns about. Clearly, we have to take a look at what that scheme is, and how it operates, and how it impacts on neighbouring properties, and how it looks visually.
Okay, the next one is Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we've been told to a layperson these rooms are habitable. It's part of your home and part of your house. But I think it's important for us to take on board what the officers have said about this, in planning terms, not being habitable rooms, and having perhaps a different distinction from the rest of the house. I think, as they're not habitable, this condition 2 being referred to probably is the best we can do to try and preserve the interests of both parties. So it's something of a compromise, I know, but as a planning committee, we are where we are. You know, we probably want to start from a different place, maybe, but we are where we are along the road of planning applications, and so I think that condition 2 is the best we can do, and I would certainly support it, Chair.
Good. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. If we can go back to a previous photo of that gentleman standing against the window, because I believe that gives a false impression. It's sort of projected upwards. But you showed another photo of a distance away.
But that's a different window.
There's two different windows.
That's the other room. That's the other one in the application.
That's what I was looking. I'm going to say, you know, that just puzzled me because I thought, how can that be overlooking? You know, unless you get
just
some
for
sort
your
of
information.
but I mean, even saying that, I mean that you still have to stand on some sort of soapbox, I should imagine.
Standing in the bar.
Yeah, well, it's still not high enough, really, is it, to really intrude and overlook. That's one point I wanted to make. The other point, I know it's saying there should be obscured glass and that, but I just wondered under the conditions, because I am concerned about condensation because of the use, what it's going to be used for. If the officer would be minded would they allow some sort of electrical fan system to be installed into that window with that, what's the word, intrigue on the condition on, but I mean that's one way of, you know, keeping a nail window shut, so to speak. I totally disagree as well about previous comments because it's a retrospective planning that we're trying to make the shoe fit. If members can recall, just a few weeks ago there was a planning application in Badby Road where they'd taken on caterers and staff and all sorts, and then it got refused at, you know, as a retro planning application. So it's not a case of, because it's there, we've got to make shoe fit. That's all I'd like to say to you. I think we should go along with officers' advice.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Hayward, do you want to make...
Just in respect to the conditions, Chairman, you'll see condition 1 actually is a standard condition. Given that this development is retrospective, that wouldn't apply. It would, if members reminded to approve the application, effectively be approved from the date the application was submitted. That's the only thing to say.
Thank you. Councillor Fraction.
Thank you, Chair. Just one last point. If the committee is minded to go with officers' advice eventually, I have a question about a lot of these windows have those trickle vents in them. Well, that's the same as opening the window because it lets the sound in and out. Can we ensure that they are nailed closed as well?
Again,
in inverted commas.
Through you, Chairman, I mean, if members are uncomfortable with the condition as it's currently phrased, it's perfectly at liberty to say the windows shall be closed with no ventilation.
Yeah.
Clearly, you've heard the concerns of the applicant, and I think it's a building regulations requirement. That the bathrooms have to have some ventilation. So, whilst you're pardon the pump, you're closing the stable door on one hand, you obviously need to try and make provision for adequate ventilation mitigation. So the condition could be amended to secure effectively a total sealed opening, as it were, but provision for other adequate ventilation that doesn't result in noise or...
Perhaps we could revisit that if depending how the vote goes.
Would we be asking the applicant to tell us what he wanted to do in that respect? To submit an application as far as the ventilation is?
Well, again...
Can the committee do that?
Off the top of my head, it would be a case of saying that the condition is that the window is fixed closed with no ventilation within that particular opening or the surrounding frames. But an alternative ventilation scheme be provided to afford adequate ventilation to the bathroom, given the window opening and trickle ventilation.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's outside of your remit. If you were minded to approve this, it would become a building regulations matter. And members of qualified building regulation approval would require a degree of ventilation in that room.
Through the Chair, I believe that all fenestration is required to have triple ventilation.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Councillor Craven.
Thank you, Chairman. Just before we wrap all this up and make a decision about what we're going to do, I'm just wondering, obviously this has been put in there fairly recently, is this a new bathroom in that roof space? Or has that been there for a long, long time? So I'm just wondering, obviously, what the reason for putting that in?
28 years. Previously a bathroom without window.
Yes, it's always been like that.
Just a window,
absolutely. So, just wondering, I'm just trying to get my head around why suddenly we've got this here, is it a new bathroom or not, but again, I'd like to...
Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved. Refused, Councillor Fraction, which has been seconded by Councillor Robertson. Those in favour of that, please show now. Right, those against? Right, so the application is not refused, so we've got to go the other way around now, haven't we?
Do you have a proposal?
Councillor Paul, you're proposing the application to be approved?
Chair, can I say, are we going to do something about, are we
subject to?
I'll second that.
Okay, is this subject to the window being fixed?
Yeah.
Is that what the committee agrees?
Chairman, I would like to propose that we accept condition 2, Arabic, with the second paragraph, which is within the remit of our planning committee.
So he's proposing his own draft.
Yeah. Okay, you have a seconder for that?
Yes, I said.
Yes, Councillor Osborne, thank you. So we have a proposal that the application be approved subject to those conditions. All those in favour, please show. Those against?
Left-handed ones.
I'm through. Yes. You can't vote the table.
He's got his hand up my back.
The application is approved subject to the conditions. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes the planning committee.